Hi there, welcome to Spline Universe. I'm Aya, a Spline expert designer and your guide for interactive 3D design. In this video, I will show you step by step how to create a cute sleeping pear entirely in Spline. I also want to mention that Spline released the animation timeline feature just a few days ago. This tutorial includes the new animation timeline, but since more updates are expected from Spline, some parts of the UI may look different from what you see here. Feel free to leave a comment if you have any questions. Alright, let's get started. Before we start modeling, let's take a look at the structure. Our scene will include a sleeping pear, a round lampshade with a swinging loop animation, and glowing stars around them. We will also explore scene effect settings such as depth of field. Okay, let's start by modeling a pear. Delete the default rectangle and add a shape blend from the top toolbar. This shape blend automatically creates a group with a primitive sphere. Let's change the global setting for snapping to object to make it easier to align our shapes. Select the sphere in the shape blend group and press Ctrl D to duplicate it. Move the duplicated sphere upward and you will see the interesting effects of a shape blend. It looks like mochi or gooey melted marshmallow. This shape blend feature is very unique. By combining multiple primitive shapes inside a shape blend group, we can create flexible, soft forms such as liquid-like shapes or smooth, rounded shapes. To make a pear shape, select the bottom sphere and scale it up. This will form the bottom part of the pear's body. Then grab the top sphere and scale it up slightly as well. Move the bottom part downward and adjust the head's position. Shape blend also has its own Boolean operations. When you select primitive shapes inside a shape blend, you can define how they interact such as union, intersection, or subtraction. Today, we will keep it at the default union operation. At the bottom, you will see the blending value, which seamlessly connect shape together. A higher value increases the blended area. I will leave it at 60. Adjust the positions of the body and head parts, and be sure to check from different angles. You can also use the alignment setting from the right-hand panel. I will align to x-axis to center it. Now we have a smooth, rounded body. Select the sphere and double-click them to rename. Call the top one head and the bottom one body. Rename the shape blend group body.group. Let's add a stem. Add a cylinder from the top toolbar. Drag to create the cylinder and for now, set the corner value to 0. Place the cylinder at the top center of the body. Let's zoom into the head area. From the shape setting on the right, adjust the cylinder's top and bottom size. Feel free to experiment with the proportions. You can make the bottom wider or the top wider. I will set the top to 20 and the bottom to 4, and also set the corner size to 6. Once you are happy with the stem shape, click the Smooth and Edit button to convert it into a mesh. When we create a mesh object in Spline, we can use the 3D Sculpting feature. Select the mesh and you will see a brush icon at the top. Sculpting offers 4 operations: grab, draw clay, and smooth. Let's use grab first. Orbit your viewport by holding Alt and left-clicking or Ctrl and the middle mouse button. Click the tip of the stem in grab mode and drag slightly to the side. Play around until you like the result. Exit sculpting mode using the top right close button. You can also rotate the object if you prefer. I am happy with this shape, so let's move on to the legs. Select the pen tool from the top toolbar and draw a straight line. Click to add a point, then convert it to a path from the right panel. Set the path size to 10 and change caps from flat to round. Place the leg under the body. To change the path, click Edit Path on the right. If you want a curve, select a point and use the Bend tool. Add another point, switch to the Select tool, and move the point to make the little foot chip. Or if you prefer, leave it as a simple line. Just make sure to check from different angles. I will set the path size to 12. Okay, I'm happy with the path. Adjust the rotation and the position. Once you're happy with the leg, double-click the path and rename it to leg. Ctrl-G to make a group and rename it leg.group. Ctrl-D to duplicate the leg and rename it leg.group-light. Move it to the other side and adjust as needed. Okay, now let's organize the layers. Hold Shift key and select the body group, stem, cylinder and both legs. Then Ctrl-G to group them. Rename it Pear body. Next, let's make a cute sleeping face. Select the pen tool from the top toolbar and draw the curve for the eye. You can click and hold to make the path to curve. Hit the Convert to Path button and change the caps to round. Let's adjust the path size and position. I will set the size to 6. We do not need a shadow for the eye, so set shadows to receive only. Once you're happy with the eye shape, Ctrl-D to duplicate the path and move it to the other side. Rename the path to eye left and eye right. Use the pen tool again to draw a mouth. Convert it to a path and set the sides the same as the eyes. Adjust its shape. You can make a simple curve or smile if you prefer. Once you're happy with the mouse, double-click the layer and rename it to mouse. Orbit the camera to adjust the face parts. Hold Shift and align to the X-axis max. Group the face parts with Ctrl-G and rename it face.group. Okay, now let's select the face and the body group. Ctrl D to group again, and rename it Pear.parent. Now we have a sleeping Pear. Next, let's make a round lampshade. Add a sphere from the top toolbar and drag to draw it. Orbit the camera and place the sphere at the center of the Pear. We want to cover the Pear, so adjust the size. I will set it to 410. Once you're happy with the size and the position, double-click the sphere and rename it something like ball. Place Ctrl D to duplicate it and rename them mask. This mask shape will create the space where the sleeping Pear can have a seat inside the lampshade. Hold Shift key and select both ball and mask, then turn on the Boolean operation with subtract mode. Adjust the mask shape's position and alignment. Move the Pear.parent layer to the top, then place the sleeping Pear so it can sit inside the lampshade. Adjust the Z rotation value of the Pear.parent group. And make sure everything looks good from the side as well. Double-click the Boolean layer and rename it ball.group. I will slightly scale down the mask shape to around 342. Let's update the rotation and the position of the Pear's legs. For an easier workflow, fix the left leg's position and the rotation first. Then press Ctrl D to duplicate it, move it to the other side, and keep it aligned horizontally. If you make a new group, the group scale will reset to 1 and the rotation will reset to 0, which makes it easier to adjust the values. Remember to rename the group. I will finalize the position and rotation of both legs so they are placed nicely at the center of the Pear's body and slightly sticking out of the round lampshade. Later, we will add a loop animation so the legs swing. For that, group the leg object again to reset its rotation value to 0 and rename it leg.group left root. Now let's move the pivot point of this root group. Hold the Alt key and select the root group. You will see the gizmo for the pivot point. Move the pivot point upward so it aligns with the root of the leg. The reason we set the pivot point here is because when we add a state animation later, we want the leg to rotate based on this pivot. That way, the leg will swing up and down. We will set the animation later, so let's remove the states for now. Same as the left leg, hold Alt key and select the right leg group, then move up the pivot point to the root of the leg. Final check for the Pear and the Lampshade modeling. I will set the bottom part size to 160 and change the head blending scale to 45. If you want another variation, you can try making an apple shape or peach shape as well. Create your own style of character with your own flow. I want to make the mouth slightly smaller and reduce the part size to 4. Just like the legs, if you change the shape of one eye, you can simply duplicate the fixed path with Ctrl D, move it to the other side, rename it, and you will have perfectly matched eyes. Alright, everything looks great and we already have a cute vibe here. Close the open group layers to tidy up. Now let's add the top part of the lampshade. Add a new sphere from the top toolbar. Drag to draw a small sphere and place it at the top center of the ball dot group. Only the top half of this part needs to be visible. Select the pen tool and draw a long straight line. Convert it to a path and scale down the path size to about 15. Orbit the camera to make sure it's nicely centered and aligned. Hold Shift and select both the sphere and the path, then press Ctrl G to group them. Rename them rope.group. This round lampshade will have a swinging animation later on. So let's set the pivot point. Hold Alt key and select the rope.group, then move the pivot point to the very top. Alright, we are about halfway through now. Let's start working on the material setting. Select the ball.group and change the color to whatever you like. I will simply set it to pure white. Click the plus button to add a new material layer, then select Fresnel. Let's update the background color. From the top right scene settings, change the background color. I will use a dark navy. Next, let's turn on the scene effects. Click Effects to open the panel, where you will see several scene effects options. Today, we will use the bloom effect. Turn it on by clicking the eye icon on the right. You will see the scene start glowing brightly. Open the bloom settings and change the size to small. Intensity controls how strong the bloom effect is. I will set it to 0.1 for subtle glowing effect. Next, turn on the DoF effect at the top. DoF stands for Depth of Field. This creates an effect where only objects within a specific distance from the camera are sharp and in focus, while objects outside the range become blurred. I love this effect because it's realism and works really well with diorama style 3D designs. Click the focus icon on the right and select the object you want to focus on, which is the sleeping Pear in this case. Play around with the focus distance and the DoF values so that the Pear appears sharp while the lampshade is slightly blurred. To make the DoF effect more clear, let's add some spheres around the lampshade. Duplicate the sphere with Ctrl D and place the copies randomly around the Pear. Make sure to adjust their X positions so that some are close to the focus area, which is the Pear, and others are farther away. Now let's add color materials for the spheres. Choose a bright color so the bloom effects show well. I will use yellow with the color code FFBC55. Add a new Fresnel layer and change it to a brighter tone. I will use FFE492 and set the bias to 0.6. Let's create a material asset. Open the Material Assets panel, then click the plus button while the yellow sphere is selected. Double-click to rename the material light. Now, copy and paste the light spheres. Change their size so they have random scales and positions. Since we created the material asset, you can simply select the duplicates and set their material to light. Open the DoF effects again and adjust the focus distance. You can also change the blur scale. You will see that the light spheres placed further away from the focus area appear blurred. Next, let's add another light color. Right-click the light material asset and choose Duplicate. Rename it Light Orange and change the color slightly. I will use ECA232 for the main color and E4B441 for the Fresnel color. Select some spheres and apply the light orange material. If you want extra variation, add a star shape from the top toolbar. Adjust the corner size to 5 and apply one of the materials from our assets. Add some depth by scaling up the extrusion and bevel. My settings are extrusion 5, bevel size 4, bevel slice 2. Again, Ctrl D to duplicate your stars and place them randomly. Play with their positions so the DoF effect makes them blur nicely. You can also rotate the stars for variety. For the final version, I changed the corner size to 3 and the extrusion to 3.63. Okay, everything looks great. Let's move on the lighting setting. Add a point light from the top toolbar. Let's select all the extra spheres and stars by holding Shift, then press Ctrl G to group them. Double-click the group and rename it parts.group. Next, select the directional light and delete it. Lock the side parts group so we do not accidentally move it. Select the point light and move it to your preferred spot. I will place it at the top left of the Pear. Open the scene light setting from the right-hand panel. Change the intensity to 0.2. Now, select the point light again, adjust its color and intensity. I will use FFB43E with an intensity of 0.8 to give the scene a warm lighting effect. Adjust the position of the point light as needed. You can also modify the distance value. I have set it to 4179. The radius value controls how soft or blurry the shadows appear. I will set it to 42.03, but this depends on your scene, so feel free to experiment. Finally, orbit the camera to check from different angles. I have also updated the position of the Pear. Okay, let's add color to our Pear now. Select the body.group and change the color layer to depth. You can add a new color value by clicking on the depth slider here. Adjust the near, far, and origin values to create highlights and shade contrast on the Pear's body. This way, the face that receives the light will appear bright, and the bottom will be darker. While adjusting the shade and contrast, just pick colors that clearly highlight the areas. I am using red temporarily. Once the depth range is fixed, let's set the highlight color for the face. I will use the light green with following color code DFE576 for the highlight, C7DF50, second one, 95CS3E for the third, 82BC30 for the bottom shade. It's also fine if you only use 2 or 3 tones instead of 4. Now, let's add a noise layer. Open the noise layer and select ball noise with F2 style. Adjust the movement and the scale values to create subtle random noise. Change the mode to mask. Change the first color of the noise layer. You can toggle visibility on and off to see the difference more easily. I will leave the scale at 0.53, the movement at -0.11, and use 89C73D for the noise color. Orbit your camera and adjust the depth color range however you like. Once you're happy with the body color, select the body.group, open the material assets panel on the right, and add a new material assets. Rename it body. Okay, let's move on the legs. Select one of the leg and change the color. I will use 5A4533 for the legs. Once you are happy with the leg color, open the material assets, then add a new material asset. Rename it to something you can find easier like brown. Select the other leg and apply the same material. Then select the cylinder for the stem and apply the same brown material. I will also rotate the stem slightly. Next, select the face.group and apply the brown material. I want a slightly darker tone for the face, so I will right-click the brown material, duplicate it, rename it dark brown, and set the color to 362820. Feel free to adjust other colors if you want to experiment. The last material we need to set is the rope. Select the rope.group and assign any materials you like. I will use brown. Now let's update the white Fresnel for the lampshade. The Fresnel color will be FFB D1 and the bias will be 0.14. Add this as a material asset too, so the white lampshade color is saved. Okay, it looks great. I feel like I want blur affect the side parts more, so I will update the DoF effect values to finalize. The important thing here is learning how to use effects and basic modeling. You do not need to create an exact pixel perfect copy of my design. Keep an open mind and play with colors and values to create your own style. Alright, I'm happy with the material settings. Let's move on to the last process, which is animation. I will first show you state animation, and then we will cover timeline animation. First, hold the shift key and select the ball.group, pear, and rope, then press Ctrl G to group them. Rename the new group main.group. zoom out a bit, hold the Alt key and click the main dot group. Move the pivot point to the top. Make sure the pivot point is placed at the top center of the loop. Next, add a new state from the right-hand state panel. Set the base state X rotation to -3 and the new state to 3. Now we have a state-based animation where the X rotation moves between -3 and 3. Add an event. Leave the event setting as start and add a transition action. Set the first transition state to base state and the duration to 4 seconds. Change the loop setting infinite, ping-pong. Now let's preview it. We have a swinging looped animation that moves left to right. In the state animation settings, we can also adjust the transition curve here. Play around with the animation curve and duration. I will leave it as a 4-second loop. So this is the legacy state animation in Spline. Now let's dive into the new feature, timeline animation. To open the timeline animation, click the clock icon on the top toolbar. Yes, this is a completely new feature and I'm a newbie with it as well. You will see a timeline panel appear at the bottom. Currently, we have a quick preset, which is basically like an animation template. Select the main dot group and you will see the selected object also appear in the timeline panel. Click the animation button on the right, then select the rotation. You can see a slider on the timeline starting from -3. This highlighted bar works like a keyframe. Select the one at the end and slide it to the side to expand the animation duration. In my scene, the X value automatically changed to 87 for some reason. Let's adjust the animation duration to 4 seconds. You can click and hold the green play bar to preview the animation in real time in the viewport, which is great since we don't need to open the preview window separately. Let's fix the X rotation value to 3. Now the X rotation will change from -3 to 3 over 4 seconds, but it's a bit too long. So move the endpoint to 2 seconds. You can check the timeline links shown in dark gray or directly type the number next to the play button. Personally, just typing 4 here sets the animation links easier to me. You can see the loop setting on the right. Click to turn on loop. Select the animation on the timeline and copy it with Ctrl+C. Then paste it at the 2-second mark with Ctrl+V. Make sure the first keyframe is -3, the middle one is 3, and the last one is -3 again, same as the first. Now the X rotation value changes from -3 to 3, then back to -3, completing one loop in 4 seconds. Let's open the graph editor next to the loop button. If you are familiar with After Effects, this will feel very similar. You can see the X value as a red graph. Click and move the dots or adjust the easing path shown as a gray line. You can always undo it by pressing Ctrl+Z. We have one more step to activate the timeline animation. Select the body.group and you will see the transition events we made earlier for the state-based animation. You can preview the state animation by clicking the preview button, but timeline animation requires different events. Let's add another event and select the action called Timeline Animations. To keep things clear, rename the timeline by double-clicking it and calling it main.rotation loop. Open the timeline animation action, and you will see the renamed timeline is set as the active one. Make sure the loop setting is set to infinite. Now we have two events. Let's test both. Hide the state-based animation by clicking the eye icon on the right, so only the timeline animation is active. Preview it. The timeline animation works great. Now go back to the viewport, turn off the timeline animation, and turn the state-based animation back on. Preview it again. Actually, the animation is a bit too slow, so let's change the duration to 2 seconds. Much better now. In state-based animation, you can adjust the motion path here, but if you want more advanced control of the motion path using the graph editor, timeline animation is the better option, I guess. I will leave the state-based animation duration set to 2.5 seconds. Okay, let's close the timeline view. For the render view, turn Alt Zoom to Yes from the top right. Now let's add a camera from top toolbar. Snap the camera and make sure your viewport is using the new camera you just added. Adjust the camera position and zoom level so our sleeping Pear is nicely placed in the center. Let's set the export setting. Since the timeline button is now on the toolbar, the export button has moved to the top right of the scene. From the overview, check that your main scene is selected and that the camera matches the viewport. Open the play settings for more details. This time, change pan and zoom to no. Go to the touch setting for tablet and mobile behavior. Change pan to disabled, orbit to one finger, and zoom to none. Turn on the orbit limit. We only want to activate horizontal orbit. Set both the right and the left orbit areas to 30. Soft limit is unnecessary, so set it to none. Next, turn on the on-hover setting for desktop view. This makes the camera orbit when you hover your mouse over the screen. Set sensitivity to 15 and damping to 2. That's all for export settings. Go back to Overview and click the Update Public URL button. Open the public URL to see the final render. Now you will see a cute, cozy sleeping Pear swinging left and right. On desktop view, the camera orbits smoothly following your mouse cursor. You can also click and drag on the scene to orbit it manually. It will stop at certain angles since we set the orbit limit. I don't think we need hover reset, so let's change the on hover setting. Reset if from hover out to no reset. Update the public URL and open the link again. Now, when your cursor leaves the window, the camera orbit stays without resetting. Go back to the viewport and double-click the scene title. Once you rename the scene title, make sure to update the public URL. You can also export as JPEG or PNG for a static image. If you export as a public URL, you can simply copy and paste the link to share your scene. As long as you are online, you can view the 3D interactive render on both mobile and desktop. Actually, we forgot one thing, a loop animation for all the legs. Select one of the leg groups. Switch the viewport camera to personal camera. I will create a state-based animation for the legs. Add a new state and change the Z rotation value. For the base state, leave Z rotation at 0 and set the new state to 12. Now select the other leg. For this one, set the state Z rotation to -12. Add an event and select transition action. Set the animation from base state to state with a duration of 2 seconds. Change the loop setting infinite, ping-pong. Right-click the transition action, then copy and paste it. Change the target to the other leg. Let's preview the scene. You can leave this as the final version, or if we want to sync the swinging animation, take the duration of the main.group animation, which is 2.5 seconds. Go back to the leg group animations and change the duration from 2 to 2.5. Preview again. Now the leg and the body swinging animations are nicely matched. That's all for today's adventure in the Spline universe. Congratulations to us, we made an interactive 3D scene with a cute Pear and beautiful depths of field effects. I'm so proud of you for creating everything from scratch, including modeling, materials, lighting, and animation in Spline. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please give it a like and subscribe. It really helps motivate me to keep creating more content for you. See you soon. Bye.